Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Welcome back to another episode of Couples Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Be sure to check us out online on our Facebook page, Couples Synergy, or our website, couplesynergy.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couples Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experiences working with thousands of couples for nearly 20 years.
Everyone says you need to work on a relationship, but nobody teaches us how. So we've created this podcast to teach people what they can do to create the relationship they've always dreamed of with the partner they fell in love with.
I must mention that we are doing this episode as a memorial for all veterans that we have lost, whether in battle overseas or in the battle at home. And we especially honor the memory of Jean's cousin, Corporal Patrick O'Reilly, a young Marine who recently lost his battle with PTSD and depression. To help us with this episode, we have brought on Jean's uncle, Richard, who is a Vietnam combat veteran who served in the 1st Battalion Mechanized 5th Infantry, 25th Infantry Division, otherwise known as Bobcats. He is an author of 2 books, The Landscape of My Memory, about his experience in Vietnam, and Our Beat Goes On, a book about his return to Vietnam in 2010. We'll be talking about his experience serving in the military and how his experience shaped who he is today, his experience with PTSD and how it has affected his relationships. We want to welcome you, Rich, to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So why don't we start with, when you joined, right?
Well, I got into the military on February 14th, 1966, Valentine's Day. Ha ha ha.
And did you enlist? Were you drafted?
I was drafted. I figured I was going to go, but I didn't want to do it that way.
I want to say thank you very much for your service, and thank you for all the freedoms that we have today because of your service.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the combat is a terrible thing.
When did you find out that you were going to be going in the military?
About 2.5 years before that.
How did you find out?
Because I knew I was going to be drafted.
How did you know?
I just knew.
Just a feeling that you had?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I knew.
How come you didn't run away from that?
Run away? No, I'm an honorable person.
Mm.
I love my country. I serve it.
And you were 18 when you...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then they really, I was really thinking about the term basic training, and it really is basic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
To instantly train you to be a warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, they did give us training and direct training for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They also had a football game. They had 2 teams, threw the ball up in the middle, boom. Whoever gets the ball and can keep the ball is the winner.
Wow.
A little R&R at that time.
Yeah. Makes it tough.
So were you deployed right away to Vietnam after basic?
Well, that was February of 66. I went to Vietnam on the 10th of October, 66.
And your unit was, talk about being on the front lines. Your unit was really on the front lines.
Oh yes. When I got there, when I actually finished my training, I was a combat soldier, but I didn't get the advanced combat soldier training. But I had a feeling for that, and they give you a test, and in the test that came out,
So you had the skills they were looking for.
yeah, and the temperament to do it.
Yeah.
I was reading up a little bit about the 1st Battalion, 5th Infantry, and they were awarded the Valorious Unit Award, and some of the things that your unit had to do was really extreme and really courageous.
Mm-hmm. The thing with that is we were the reactionary force for the 25th Infantry Division. If there was a combat group was going out to fight, we did it a week before and a week after, or maybe 2 weeks after. So we were out more than some of the regular units.
Why is that?
Because we were out there making sure that we, as much as we could, where other people were at that were going to be after us, and so we could get, a head up on them.
So you're gathering information and learning things.
Yeah.
I just read a little bit of your book about the first time you went in a tunnel.
Oh yeah, that's an experience. Crazy, but when you're there and it's there.
One of the things that you said is you didn't want to leave there a tunnel virgin.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you talk about why those things become important to somebody that's serving in combat?
Well, it means that you're, at least you're doing something that most people would be scared to death to do. And I didn't do that many tunnels, but just going in your first tunnel was kind of
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting some of the other people we've talked to kind of talk about anyone who survived didn't do enough. Like that's sort of a feeling people have. That when someone says thank you for your service, they sort of feel like, well, I didn't give my life, so like there's survivor's guilt.
Survivor's guilt, right?
Well, yeah, survivor guilt is personal to you and the other person, or the other people, and it's in your unit. That's how that is.
Yeah.
Were there times when, emotions would, get the best of you? When you would feel afraid or feel fear?
If anybody was honest, going out in the field is scary. You don't know what's out there. It's their turf. They have holes in the ground. They can come up anywhere they want. That's the part, that the unknown. Other than that, it's just you going and doing what you have to do.
Did you have a feeling that you would survive this?
Yeah, I did, because I had a mindset that if I was going to do something brave, I had to be smart.
Good plan.
Yeah.
It seems like people that aren't able to really get their head in the game probably die much faster.
Well, yeah. The thing is you can't go out there and think you're going on a hike up the mountain in Utah or something like that. It's death is out there, and it's looking for you.
So it's pure survival.
Yeah. And we didn't at that point we weren't fighting for anything but each other.
So I had read in your book here about Specialist 4th Class Daniel Fernandez.
Yes.
Who had, in trying to rescue a wounded sergeant, he had thrown himself on an enemy grenade to save the rest of the surrounding unit.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing about that was, as I didn't come over on a boat. I was, a secondary group after that. But he told somebody on the boat that he was going to be a Medal of Honor winner. And he is.
And what do you have to do to be a Medal of Honor winner?
You have to do something extraordinary for somebody else. Running up a hill by yourself and killing off a bunch of guys, or, you know, just like what Daniel did. There was a firefight. I don't have all the information because I wasn't there, but they had a firefight, and they were fighting, and then they were coming back, and somebody was wounded, and they were working on him, and then they were being attacked. So what he did is he saw a grenade come in, he jumped over 3 guys and landed on it and took the explosion, and he died about a few minutes after that.
And that's
Incredible.
That's true courageousness right there, and self-sacrifice. Right.
At a level, and most people never are in a situation where they would ever have to give like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I imagine in those circumstances, the bond and relationship that you build, you know, with the buddies that you serve with is almost unbreakable.
Yeah, well, it was like a family. We fought sometimes with each other, got pissed off at them. I'm not going to lose, you know, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't sugarcoat it. You know, what I say is the way they would talk.
Mm-hmm.
But they die for each other.
Did you stay with the same group of people throughout your service, or did people come and go?
Well, I was late a little bit later, so when I got there, the people that were moving out, then I became one of the next group.
Mm-hmm. And then your group stayed together through your tour?
Well, when you're on an armored personnel carrier is what we went through the jungle with. But we did a lot of stuff on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And we just did what we had to do.
How long did you serve over in Vietnam?
It was about a month less than, about 11 months, because my father had died about 2 weeks after I got there. And they sent me home, and they were surprised when I came back.
Really?
Yes, they said, you know, he's gone. You know, but you know, it was just what you do.
That was the month before I was born. Which is next Wednesday.
That's great.
That's kind of wild,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? That we're recording it now.
Yeah. 53 years ago.
Yeah. Well, you know, when we came home, we weren't exactly treated like conquering heroes.
How was it when you came home?
We got crapped on. Guys came home, and they were throwing stuff at them, spitting on them, all kinds of crap. You know.
Did you ever experience that yourself?
No, I didn't, because at one time I came in real late, and of course they were probably then going into the bars or goofing off or something. But yeah, I'd just like to get some of them and take them off and run them through a few fields and shoot at them just to tell them how it was, but we never could do that.
You know, I think the Patriot Riders, are you familiar with them?
I'm not sure which group.
The Patriot Riders they're motorcycle riders,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they'll show up at the airport.
Oh, yeah.
And they will, if it happens to be a funeral, they'll stay outside and rev their engines so the protesters can't
Yeah.
be heard. And I think,
Most of them are vets.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that is an awesome service that those people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's something wrong in this country, and it starts with education.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about your service when you came back?
Well, I felt good about it. You know, I didn't feel like I was a bum. You know,
What was the hardest part about adjusting back to civilian life?
is they did it in a way that we were supposed to feel like we were less than human, or that we were crap, and we should just shut up and get out of their way. And that never changed from Vietnam, really.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the vets that we had interviewed in episode 43, he talked about coming back like everyone is speaking a different language. And, you know, it's people are complaining about little things that you didn't have the luxury to complain about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, from this is 50 years ago. From there to now, young people aren't the same. They don't have the guts that we had. They don't. You know, I'm not saying all of them, but in general, they're mama boys.
Much less resilient.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that you guys had the guts going into the Vietnam War, or did Vietnam actually give you the guts because of your experiences?
No, we had the guts before that.
Yeah.
Our street, we had a empty lot, and we fought every war from Attila the Hun to Indians and the
Cowboys
and
and
Cowboys.
Is this
and
as a
Indians.
boy?
like role playing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, but see, at that time, I wanted to tell this because it's kind of funny. All right, you know, kids put up lemonade stands and stuff like that. Well, I lived in the second house in this street, and what I did is I wanted to make some money, so I took some garden soil from my grandfather and went into the empty lot and put it in there, mixed it up, and then I sold that in bags. No, selling dirt. Really?
Did it work?
Yes. Yes. And the little girl next door that lived on the third floor, she was my Vanna White.
She was your marketing model?
Yeah. It was, you know, I had ideas like that.
Yeah, that innovation.
Another thing we did is a fellow by the name of Rick Holmes and I, we went into the empty lot, dug a big hole, put pallets over the top, covered it up, put coal and candles in there, and sold tours to the coal mine.
That's awesome.
That's pretty innovative.
Yeah, crazy.
So a lot of people that have served in Vietnam don't like to talk about it. What inspired you to write a book about it?
Well, I think it wasn't that did it. When I started it, it was just because we had guys in the unit. Everybody was talking, well, I'm going to write a book. Well, I just got tired of it, so I wrote a book.
So you stayed in touch with the people you served with?
Not exactly. When I got finished with, you know, going fighting, I was at home, and it was maybe 10 years after that we ran across, you know, some you know, people. You know, they had this thing for looking for people you went to school with. So I went into there and that thing, and I got in there, and I found a guy that was my squad leader, Butch Pettit.
Mm.
And I talked to him and stuff, and then a couple of years after that, they started having these reunions. So I went to one of them, you know.
Was that healing for you?
Oh, yeah.
What other kinds of things did you do to help yourself adjust to all those things you went through in the war?
Well, I don't know if I actively thought of that, but I did what I did. Let's see, after I got married and we had a problem and I got divorced, and then my daughter was doing gymnastics. I'm a gymnast, and we went to this meet, and the guy that was the coach there, they had a problem with the microphone for telling what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. I have a voice that can be heard. And then we were doing that. We found a thing called sports acrobatics.
Mm-hmm.
So from that time on until I was 54, we were doing competitions and shows. I was 48 years old when we were the national champions in the men's four.
Cool.
It's crazy.
Wow.
It's crazy. And we did a lot of Renaissance fairs to make money to go compete. So
I think that physical activity does something to help you process the emotional stuff.
oh yeah, you're too tired to worry about everything. What can I say?
Well, it sounds also like there was of a focus, because it was a passion of yours, and it kind of helps you stay, out of those thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't do competitive gymnastics. I mean, I probably could have, but I think a lot was taken out of us in doing the combat. That wasn't, I probably could have worked out, but I didn't. Actually, when I went to Fort Hood, I was the parallel bar champion and the rings and pommel horse.
Wow.
Cool.
That's pretty impressive.
That was in 1966. Yeah.
So that was before you were.
Yeah, I was in
Okay.
Fort Hood,
Mhm.
and I heard there's a gymnastic meet. I go, oh man. So I went there and I competed there.
What other impact did your service have on your family?
Well, it was good for some and not for others. My daughter, how men are with their daughters, they don't, But my son, I wanted him to do certain things, and what we came back with was toughness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not all kids are that tough,
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize my son was a little bit, sensitive. So he ended up doing drugs and stuff, and didn't go to school and stuff. And then he ended up getting to go to jail. And what was interesting about that is he was like 32 or 33. When he was in prison, he started a Bible study.
Mm.
And he was in 3 different prisons, and he had Bible studies in every one of them, which surprised everybody.
Yeah. So actually, him being in prison actually was helpful for him.
Well, yeah, and I would wish that he could find a church that would give him a job of going to prisons and doing that, because that's what he's made for. He knows more about the Bible than anybody I know, and he's teaching others. That's amazing. But it doesn't make me feel I'm proud of him, but I'm not proud of me.
Not proud of you. Because why?
Because I did it to him.
Because of the impact of combat and...
Yeah, the mindset of a stupid male.
If there is a man listening who is a father, what advice would you give to him?
Well, I think the best advice is to be low key with them. If you want them to do something, find a way of making them do it that you're not beating up on them.
Yeah.
That's about it with that. Yeah.
So at some point, you decided to go back to Vietnam. Can you tell us about that?
Well, after we got to doing the reunions, before I went there, a couple other groups went, and I went in 2010 with Butch Pettit and two other guys, and we, went through the place and stuff. The difference with us is, though, Butch got us to go up. We went up to, there's this big mountain in South Vietnam. It's called Nguyen Ba Den, the Black Virgin Mountain. And when we went there the first time, we went up there, and it's a death march up. But the Viet Cong around that whole area, that first quarter of the mountain, nobody ever got up there. But in 2012, Butch Pettit and I went around the side of the mountain and saw their caves and stuff.
They're still there.
Yep, they're still there. It's like a shrine. The men on there stayed 10 years without coming down.
Wow.
Yeah, that must have been some experience to
Yeah.
be able to see that side that you were never able to see.
We're very proud of that,
Yeah.
because we were not going there as the typical American. We were going there, and this was the second time, so we had a relationship with one of the colonels. They on the tours you go, and they'll have one guy. They'll get a guy to come and have dinner the first night with you, and that was a colonel, and that was on the first one he was there, and then he was gone. The second time we came there, he wanted to go everywhere with us. And the last week of our trip there, he invited us to a barbecue at his ancestral home.
And this is a colonel on the Viet Cong.
Yes.
And he
Wow.
had read your book?
No. He didn't get my book until the second time there, and he didn't have very much time to do anything. But when we were there, he was walking us around, and his house was about maybe 3/4 of a mile from where our base camp was when we were there.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
but
I remember you telling us a story about a river, and you were on one side of the river, and he was on the other side.
My first day in combat, my the 8th or 9th day in Vietnam, we were up in the hobo woods, and it's not hobos like bums. It's hobo. I don't know what it means, but anyways, I was on the I think it was the west side, and he was on the east side. And when we were there going on the little tour, he called me over, and he pointed in the book, and he said, when you were on this side of the river, I was on the other side of the river. Same day, same time. And if he would have caught me, he would have tortured me and then killed me. And it's a strange feeling to be eating with a guy that would kill you.
Yeah. I wonder
Yeah.
if he felt the same way.
I think so. I think so.
And how do you feel about him today?
He's all right. He did what he had to do, what he thought was, and he's just like us. He didn't get what he thought he should get.
Mm-hmm.
He got the shaft. He got communism, and communism doesn't treat people well, even if you're heroes.
Yeah.
So, kind of a parallel.
So you don't hold a grudge or...
No, what can you do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's also, apparent that democracy didn't treat you well as heroes at the time also.
Same thing. Yeah, we both got the shaft.
When we were talking to you the last time, you had said that if you can forgive him and he can forgive you, then everybody should be able to forgive everybody.
Yeah, it's true.
Those are some powerful words.
Yeah. It isn't necessarily going to happen very much, but
Right.
things are like they are.
Mm-hmm. So in honor of Memorial Day, if you could talk to your brothers that you lost in war or to the other men and women that have given their lives for our country, what would you say to them?
You are the heroes of this country. I know you weren't treated right because none of us were. But what you did, you made a sacrifice that most people would shrink from. And we honor your service. Because you did it without thinking of yourself. And I'm just sorry that we all couldn't make it home. But you're probably in a better place than we are. They're not doing what you think they should for this country. And it's getting to be kind of scary.
What would you say to people who are currently serving that are coming home?
You've put yourself on the line. And there are so many people, so many young people that are too cowardly to even attempt to do what you've done. And because of that, you are far head and shoulders above any of them. I don't care if they make a lot of money, if they're, if they have a lot of fun and they do a lot of things.
And as they're adjusting to coming back to civilian life and they're struggling with some things, what are some things they could think about or would be helpful for them?
First of all, you're alive, aren't you? You're alive, right? Yeah. All right. What do you want to do? Well, what do you want us to do? Nobody's going to do anything for you that you're not going to do for yourself. You have the ability to continue. And don't take anything from anybody because there's times when they spit on the Vietnam veterans, but they don't come and spit on you. And if they do, they'd probably go to jail. So,
The family has been kind of grieving because of the loss of, Patrick. And, one of the biggest things was that it was, no one knew, right? No one knew that he was struggling. No one knew that he was kind of fighting these internal demons and stuff. And, in speaking with a lot of vets, a lot of them have experienced the same thing, and the feeling is that you need to be strong. You need to keep those things to yourself. You shouldn't talk about it. Right? You just need to man up. And, I think that's the hardest thing for family members, right? That don't understand what they might be struggling with. And so from your perspective, is there something that family members should know about the experience of a combat vet and what they should be concerned about?
Well, before they should be concerned, this government should be concerned. They send you out to kill somebody. You do it, you come back, and you're supposed to automatically jump back into being a nice guy on the street. It doesn't happen. They need to do something to change that. And my idea is that when they come back, they don't go home. They go to a place and they get straightened out.
Like the opposite of basic training?
Yes.
To help them integrate, to help them heal.
Right. And to understand what they've done is not murdering people, but saving other lives. Because that's what you're there for. Is to kill the enemy. If you're in war, that's what you do. It's kill or be killed.
I think there's a difference between it being a choice that you're choosing to go do,
yeah,
and doing it because somewhere someone has a bigger picture that feels it's necessary.
Right.
I think your idea of having some type of a retreat center, a place for healing for vets coming home is it's like it makes sense, right? It's a fantastic idea, and it absolutely is necessary.
You send somebody out, they're killing people because if they don't kill them, they're going to be killed. And when they come back, are they supposed to just put on a smile and be Mr. Nice Guy? That doesn't happen. Your whole fiber of your being is changed. You're a killer if you're in the combat zones. You're a killer.
When I worked in the hospital system, whenever we would have a code, whether someone was in distress or whether we had to, do restraints or something that was a crisis, after the event, we would all come together as a team and we would process and we would talk about what it felt like and were there mistakes made and how can we improve. And that was a normal process in dealing with a crisis. And, what you're talking about here is a longer term processing of what a vet has gone through and what they had to go through so that they can integrate into civilian life intact.
Right. Yeah, and the idea, you send them to work to be a soldier, they come home, if they're finished, they come home. Now, what are they going to do? You took that person and you made them a killing machine.
And now they have to come home and just be with their family and just be a civilian again.
Yeah. It's like, you had open heart surgery. Do they shove you out the door and never see you? No, they come back and they do a checkup on you. Well, they should do that checkup if they're coming out and they're getting out of even if they're not getting out of the service, if they're coming back as a combat soldier from being a citizen, they need to have something that they can, grab onto.
And I think that's a really great example you brought up because the percentage of people who go through open heart surgery that have depression is very high. And so most patients that go through open heart surgery are suggested and requested and referred to counselors for therapy.
Yeah. And see, I think if you I had this one lady, she was a psychiatrist for the VA, and I have this program that I developed for combating some of the things of PTSD, and she wanted me to give her that information so her and her sister could make a thing on it. It was my idea. I had to come in. She's a psychiatrist, but she didn't. We had 3 of us there. It's kind of like a group thing, and it was a joke.
Can you talk more about what that is, that plan that you have?
Well, all right. If they every time they come back if they're going to be come back and then go somewhere else, they need to be, before they go out and come into normal society, even the normal society of a army base or something. They need to be checked out. How are you doing? What are you doing? And then, have them go through another physical, because they might have gotten all kinds of stuff when they were doing it. Instead of just saying, "Oh, here, go home." They can do some checkups. I don't know. Somebody said, "Well, don't they do that?" I thought they'd do that. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think they're starting to now.
Yeah.
There was one of the other vets that we had interviewed. He had talked about some of the new guys coming back. The VA is checking now their emotional health, right? Not just the physical health. But I don't think that it's to the extent that is necessary.
Well, you can't talk to a guy one time and say, "Oh, he's okay."
Right.
You first of all, you do the physical, and in there you find out what's going on, kind of, and then you have people that are observing what's going on. I mean, when I got into getting my stuff, I had to come in and do at least bring my paperwork in, and there was a young man there, obviously was in bad shape. Right then, they should have put him somewhere, and I don't think they did. And that probably was a mistake.
Yeah.
What are some of the signs or symptoms that you experienced that were difficult to deal with?
Not sleeping. Not sleeping.
Was that constant? Was it worse at certain points and better at other points?
In the field, it was probably maybe 3 hours of sleep every 5 days, something like that. 4 days. When you're out there and you're working 20-hour days. You don't go to sleep right away. It takes you another 3 hours to go to sleep. Well, by that time you're on another thing there. So that was murder, And if that's not going on, it doesn't have to be, where it's a problem. It needs to be a solution.
Anything else besides not sleeping?
Well, part of not sleeping is bad memories,
Mm-hmm.
Now, I started doing something to stop that, and I think I've gotten a little bit out of that problem, but it's the days that bother us.
The days?
It's not sleeping is not the problem. It's just
It's during the day.
daytimes, If you're busy, you're all right. If you're not busy, you're thinking, and you're not equipped to think.
What has helped you?
Just time, I think. I wasn't going to let it win.
Do you still think about it today?
all the time.
So 53 years later.
Oh yeah.
Did writing the book help you, like, process any of this or help with the thoughts? And
Well, like I said before, I was going to write a book. All right. Everybody was going to write a book, and then I write a book. I got nothing but hell from a lot of people.
really?
Yeah. Well, that's not right. This ain't right. That's not. It didn't happen that way.
That's
but they didn't write one.
yeah, that's a real thing, and it's the same concept. If 5 people saw a car accident, there'd be 5 stories about what happened.
Yeah.
And everyone's perception and the way we process memory, because we do relationship work and we work with sometimes families with 5 kids and 2 parents, and you would swear they all live in a different home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more important thing is that it's your story.
Yeah.
And even if other people, and like you said, like memory is, you can't always remember things. Same with them. And then when we can't remember, we fill in the blanks.
Mm-hmm.
And then we think, no, it happened this way or that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, the funny thing about memory is that 50% of our memory is invalid and not correct.
Mm-hmm.
Our brain has a way of just filling in the gaps. It doesn't like holes.
Yeah.
But was that a helpful thing for you, or did you feel like you exposed yourself in a way that it just opened up the attack?
You just have to, say, I'm writing the book. It's my book. This is what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
It might be the same thing as yours. It might be a little bit different. It might be this. It might be that. But to get 100% right every word that comes out of there for what you were doing it in a year.
Right.
And
writing it 40 years later.
I would ask anybody, try it.
Mm-hmm.
Try to do it. Go do it. Let's see you do it. Let's see you write that book.
Well, I think the important thing is that you wrote it.
Yeah.
And it creates a legacy, right? For people to be able to understand truly, your perspective of what it was like to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just too bad that most people don't get that. And there's a difference. If we're talking about a book, all right. My book is designed way different than anybody else's book that I know. I've seen them where they have a book, and then in the middle they have all these pictures. You look in my book, you're going to see after-action reports,
Mm-hmm.
what the government said had happened, and what you felt, and what you felt, and what you did in there. That's a different story.
Absolutely, it is, because it gives multiple perspectives about what was happening.
Yeah, and I even put in there the language in the motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word. That's what they said.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody was saying that.
It was kind of the inside joke for your unit.
Well, it wasn't a joke. It was pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to find a softer word for what you were going through.
Yeah. It's just a complete change of what you thought. But see, we fought World War II, World War III, which is not a 3, but we fought all those things. So we were ready. We had been programmed. Kids today, they're not programmed for anything.
Mm-hmm.
They just get slapped here, slapped there. It's kind of crazy.
I had heard from a police officer, a police chief, say that a lot of the work that soldiers have to do now is different than it was back in the day. Right, that soldiers back in the day, if you were in the jungles and you were coming across someone else They were either friendly fire or they were enemy. But in today's day and age, they're doing a lot more police work, going through a town and having to discern whether the person is a civilian or whether they're actually enemy. And that the PTSD that they suffer now is very different than it has been in the past. I was wondering what your thoughts were about that.
Well, first off, we went through villages, so it's kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think the training has gotten better. If you're not equipped mentally and physically, you're going to be dead. And maybe dead anyways. That's what happens.
So you don't feel it's really any different?
No,
Just a different landscape?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a different uniform, different camo.
So a village as opposed to a building in a city.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you spend time with any of your other, your buddies that you served with?
Well, it's kind of hard because they're not really around, but I know other guys, and like we have a office where we go. It's a counseling office, but they have things and stuff. You could cut every cloth and it's the same.
Right. So it doesn't matter whether they're actually guys from your unit.
Oh no,
or not.
No,
Okay.
It's a brotherhood.
Right.
Is there anything else that you would like to say?
Well, if people go to serve, they're serving their country, and that's a higher love. And it's been almost all destroyed by people who are idiots. I hear some of the dumbest things. Oh, you pass a law that a teacher can do nothing to stop a willful child that's being disruptive of the class and everything else. You cannot do anything. You can't tell them anything. You can't put them in a corner. Something they might have a problem being put in a corner. Well, what are they going to do with this kid? The kid's going to go running wild. The kids aren't going to be taught. What moron came up with that idea?
Mm-hmm.
Bad has become good, and good has become bad. It's scary.
There are other countries out there like Israel and Switzerland where you are required to serve.
Yes, that is the real issue. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant taste of death but once. That was on our door. I put that on our door in Vietnam, and we live. All of us live by that.
That's a very powerful phrase.
Yeah.
In 2013, the VA released a study that covered suicides from 1999 to 2010, and it showed that roughly 22 veterans were dying by suicide per day.
That is 22 too many.
Which is a staggering statistic, right? And, I think that in what we're talking about today, it's very important for us to talk about PTSD and, the effect that it has. And, as we're talking with you, the effect is lifelong, right? The impact.
Yeah, you don't really get rid of it. You might lessen its hold on you, but it's never going to go away.
And you had written I think it's in your second book, but then also here's a little, kind of a workbook, that you have also the primary PTSD symptoms and indirect PTSD symptoms that you've indicated here. And I just want to kind of, mention these, and then we can kind of talk a little bit about it. But you have primary PTSD symptoms: anger, crisis, grief, loneliness, phobia, suicidal thoughts or ideation, anxiety, hyperarousal, depression, guilt, low self-esteem, sleep disorders, confusion, flashbacks, isolation, paranoia, hypervigilance. And with the indirect PTSD symptoms, chronic pain, denial, obsessions, compulsion, dependence, passive-aggressive, delusions, eating disorders, substance abuse behavior. This is a wide gamut of symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
And, you know, so for all of you out there, if you recognize, if you have a family member that is suffering from, you know, PTSD because of being in combat, these are some of the signs you should be really looking for. So how is it that we can help someone that is struggling with this?
Well, first of all, they can't do it by themselves, and they need somebody that knows what they're doing, or else it could be worse. So the primary responsibility, I believe, lays in the hands of the government.
The VA.
Because they took people that were government people, soldiers, and put them into combat, and they suffered all these kind of maladies.
Does the VA offer those type of services?
Oh, yeah, I believe they do. It's hard to know for sure, because myself, I had not a lot of problems in that way, but I know I had the problems, and I got some help, but I really didn't get that much help. Most of my thing has been kind of self-help.
What kind of things did you do that helped you?
Well, first of all, I identified post-traumatic stress disorder and its maladies and problems, and then I actually put together what I called a war on PTSD.
I love that. That's awesome.
And it was my war, so I did it myself, and I just think that if they can identify which problems they actually have in the most, they could probably make some changes with that. It's not going to go away, because it's burned into us.
Yeah.
Everything we did over there is just a millstone around our neck, but we do things and live in spite of it.
You say fight like a war.
Yeah.
A war on what is the fight, and is it worth fighting?
Yes, it is, because as you know, there are people that are committing suicide in more than there should ever be, and that should be stopped. But it's the government's responsibility, but it's also the families and the person's responsibility. If all those entities work together, it would probably help them a lot more.
Did you ever get to the point where you were contemplating suicide?
No, I was always afraid of hurting myself, really.
Yeah.
So,
that helps.
why do that?
Yeah.
So
Did you ever have anyone reach out to you when they were really struggling?
I've talked to some guys, yeah. Not very much, because most of them are pretty keep the thing to their vest,
One of the things I think is sort of maybe will sound strange to you, or maybe not. I think prayer and meditation is probably one of the most useful tools. Did you have any experience with that?
Somewhat, yeah. I think so.
I went through basic training.
Mm-hmm.
I served in the reserves, and That's what it felt like to me. It felt very similar. What they were training your brain to do in basic training was to not let your reactive brain react, right? You had to stay non-reactive to whatever was happening, whether it was too hot or too cold or a bee stings you or whatever it is. You're not supposed to react. And meditation is the opposite of that. In meditation, you allow yourself to hold yourself in a position while you experience things, and it starts a process of healing and a rewiring in your brain that I think allows you to then have better control over regulating your emotion. It's just super hard work.
Yeah, and I think I have an idea, and I'm not sure what they're actually doing nowadays for sure, but it's a fight that you need allies. To go it alone is rough. I mean, I basically did go it alone.
It almost sounds like you were scientific about it.
Because almost, yeah. Because I talked to these people that were supposed to be helping me, and they really didn't have a good grasp on the thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you bring up. I've found that vets who do seek out therapy, they're reluctant to talk to someone who hasn't served. Would you agree with that?
Yes. How do they know?
Right.
How are they going to know? How are they going to... Now, if they've been working with it for years, they probably got a little bit of PTSD too.
Sure.
Because it wiggles its way everywhere it can go.
When you were in the military, when you first got out of the military, did they use the term PTSD?
Nope.
I didn't think it was invented till much later.
No.
I think they had something called...
Like combat fatigue,
yeah,
I think
something like that.
That was pretty well in World War II.
Right.
Yeah.
They actually went so far as to say it didn't exist.
Yeah.
That body keeps the scorebook. That guy was a psychologist.
It was a psychiatrist
that did a lot of work, and he was the one who was part of the discovery of calling it something and saying this is real.
Yeah. Well, that's good because you can get help, but the problem is, will you go get it?
Yeah, that is the big problem.
No, my wife has a friend, and her brother is a combat veteran, and he was having all kinds of problems. But she got retired from the States, so she went out and got her brother and brought him up to where they live there, and he's helping somebody else. So that's a good thing. But to go it alone is pretty rough.
Yeah. Absolutely. You don't ever go to war alone.
No.
And you can't come home and have a private battle.
No.
You can't win it. It's impossible.
No, in fact, it will destroy you.
Mm-hmm. There's a reason there's a squad and a platoon and a company and a battalion, because you need that.
Yeah, and when you go to, like if you just went to a VA hospital, you could go in there and you'd be among yourselves. You'd be with somebody that knows what you're doing, what you've gone through and everything else, and there you have a commonality with them.
The other vet that we interviewed, Jim, he would go there just to sit in the lobby to talk to the other vets, not even to talk to anyone who was working.
Oh yeah,
and he found that really helpful.
Our hope is that if there is a vet out there that is doing this alone, that hopefully they would be able to hear your words and reach out for some help.
Yeah, it's hard for them to reach out, though. It's almost like you got to go and find them and then drag them in if you can.
Yeah, that's the hardest part. And, the willingness of it, and that's why we're really grateful for you sharing your story and for the other people that we've interviewed, because once you share it, then it's out.
Yeah.
And once it's out, then you can start to tend to it. But if it's trapped inside of you, that's a demon.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's worse than alcohol. I don't know about drugs, but it's worse than alcohol for sure. Because that just destroys you, not anything else.
Yeah.
The idea is to destroy your relationship with PTSD. And I think it kind of is a relationship, but it's not an easy one.
So if you're a warrior, the fight's not over, but keep fighting.
Yeah. The problem is warriors need help. And if they don't get that help, they're going to go. Something will happen. Their health will go, or they'll seek other means. But now, like for us right now, I mean, you're talking about 50 years ago was Vietnam.
Yeah. You've had this inside of you for that long.
Yeah.
My entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go out and kill myself.
We're glad.
Because I made it through that part of it.
You know, given all of the burden that you've had to shoulder for serving our country, would you do it again?
Yep. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, because it's worth it. And that's the important thing, is that it's not for nothing.
Yes.
And that is all there is in the end, right?
Yeah. And I wish there are more people who are making all kinds of trouble would understand that this is our country, it's their country. But if you don't love this country, why are you here?
Yeah.
Why are you here? Go somewhere else. If you like socialism, go to Russia.
Right.
Get out of here. But don't change us, because we don't want to change. And we're not going to change.
We want to thank you so much for being on our podcast today.
Well,
It has been a true honor.
You know, people have been sharing their stories for thousands of years
oh, yeah.
to heal and to bond and to grow.
Yeah.
And we hope that by you sharing your story, it's enriched your life, and the lives of our listeners.
Oh, yeah. If you don't spread what it is, it's not going to help you either.
Yeah. And any veterans that are out there, do you have that number?
I do.
And certainly you can contact us at couplesynergy.com. We'll reach out. We'll reach back for sure.
So if you are seeking help or needing to seek help here, the Veterans Crisis phone number is 1-800-273-8255. It's 1-800-273-8255.
You know, when you were in basic training, they gave you some tools to help you through the war. And this is the tool that helps you through the second half of it.
For all of you listening, please subscribe to our podcast. Please leave a review. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, please email us at contact@couplesynergy.com. For more information about Couple Synergy and our programs such as Relationship 101, the Couples Weekend Intensive, and our premier program called Couple to Couple, look us up online at couplesynergy.com.
And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please download it and share it. And thank you for listening.
Until next time, synergize your life, synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkodian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.